So this is post number 4.
Yeah.
And should we introduce ourselves again? Or?
Sure. Probably every time.
Yeah.
Braelyn, Menzies,
I'm Lexi.
Jordyn,
Rachel,
And Katelyn.
Okay. So,
We're like
Group 3.
show.
yes, group number 3.
Yeah.
post signing in.
Post 4.
There's a big computer in it, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
I just got it as me too. If this doesn't work.
I kept thinking I was gonna print it out, and then I was like, I didn't print it out right when I got here. Happens.
I printed mine like right when I got
I
here.
probably should print it.
I thought it was smart. I started last week to do that, and I was like, that's a good idea.
Yeah. It's just right here.
Way better. So do we want to go over everyone's posts and then like ask questions, or do you just want to like jump into asking questions?
I think we just want to ask questions. I don't know. I feel
Maybe we could
I'm confused.
summarize it really, really quickly.
Yeah,
like
like
less
2
than we did
minutes.
last time.
Yeah.
Just give it a super general overview, and then hopefully everyone read over everyone else's posts, and we can ask questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or like ask questions, make comments, and if you want something more in depth, then just ask.
Like clarify.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wrote my questions. So
Yeah.
sweet. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely need a little bit
Number
of a
4.
refresher of everyone else.
Okay.
If is that what we're doing? Right?
Yeah.
Starting.
Well,
Well, the 3 posts weren't posted before I went to work this morning, so
Okay.
I didn't read 3 of your posts because I went to work
Okay.
at
I think I did
7:00
mine
this morning.
yesterday.
Mine I posted in the afternoon.
I
so
posted
you
mine
can-
last night. So.
Well, yours was last night, yeah. So I saw yours.
What? I thought it was mine.
Yours was up last night.
Oh,
Yours
okay.
was up. Yours was up like right after I logged off. I was like, maybe I'll upload it right now. And then I was like, oh, I think I can finish this one. And then I was like, no, I need to go to sleep. And then you uploaded yours. And I was like, oh goodness.
Did I upload mine last night or this morning?
Technically this morning, but it was like 12:20
Oh
or
yeah, I was
something.
up really late doing homework, honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Way to power through it.
Power through, guys.
Thank you so much. So I had the first jigsaw. We don't need to talk about the first one, right?
No.
No, that was.
Alright.
We didn't even need to post it.
Yeah.
I know, I felt bad when I
Thank
posted it. So, my jigsaw, the first question, we should have talked about in the first article what kind of interesting statistics popped up. And it was just like 44% of Hispanics born outside the United States are high school dropouts, and just talking about how the achievement gap is like affecting the Latinos, I feel like. And then it was talking about how like educational background, poverty in neighborhoods, and segregation in schools all impact that. And so since it talked about how yes, some of them come from good families where they have access to like, you know, good English skills and homework help, and they live in a good home, but for a majority of them that's not actuality. And so it was talking about how those struggles are impacting them educationally. And so that was my and then one of my questions that I wanted to ask you guys, I don't know if we want to talk about this now, but how can we like fight those obstacles that those students are facing as teachers? Because that was one of my questions I had to answer, and I thought that'd be a good one to talk about.
Should we
Sorry,
read
can you
all ours and
re-ask
then
it?
talk?
So a lot of, because ours is mostly about like Latino students, and they have to overcome so many struggles and obstacles at home. Like they don't have health care, they don't have homework help at home, those kind of things. How can we as teachers acknowledge and help that?
Okay.
Should we talk about that kind of stuff? Should we all
Let's
share
just
and then
answer
talk
a little
Oh,
bit.
okay.
Yeah, I think we just can answer it now because that was my.
That's such a hard question.
No,
Like,
know.
So like my first response when I was typing it, I was like, this relates so much to our community assets map. Because in our project we have to talk about what kind of organizations are available that we can help connect to these people that need it. So I thought that was just, it like answered right what we were doing in our project, I guess. So I thought that was a really good first idea.
So definitely. Sorry.
No. You're fine. For our one that we're doing
Next slide.
NICSAC.
Oh, okay.
So there's actually like an ELL program, like an outside of school program that they have in the NICSAC school district, I think it is. Yeah. So there wasn't a ton of information online, so that's definitely what we're gonna be calling for our interviews that we're supposed to be doing. We're gonna call them and talk to them about that.
Cool. So
Yeah. So there's like
There are
sorry.
programs.
So and that's a pretty small district, so I can imagine like for larger ones or like I don't know, there could be like a lot of hopefully a lot of resources. But then the question is how do they like get there and is it yes it's a resource, but is it very
Feasible.
yeah.
I
And
think
is it like
But
attainable?
as
to
a
get there?
as a teacher, I think it's really important to like reach out to those families that you know, or maybe the EL families or families that you think are immigrants or whatever that you think they might just need that little extra help to just get involved in those activities or like just give them the phone numbers, give them
The
just
resources.
information.
Exactly.
Because one of the things I definitely was seeing in my posting readings and stuff was that a lot of times they just don't know where to go or who to trust.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, that's what I wrote about. And then as teachers, besides like connecting within those organizations, I think they just definitely need some extra help and extra tender care. I feel like
Yeah.
they definitely need that. And
with like a lot of these families, like you were saying, I feel like the parents, though they're like, oh, I don't know what to do, I don't know who to trust, they all care a lot about their kids' education and their well-being, and so I don't think it would be a matter of like offending anyone by being like, I think you should consider this program. I think that a lot of families at least would consider it and appreciate
so just
the
don't be
resources.
scared to like bring up that those resources are available too. That's definitely a good one.
Well, and sometimes if you tell the child about the resources, about like maybe fun after school programs, then they'll tell their parents.
Totally.
So then, the parents are more informed about it.
Like there's this ELL club after school, and Mike is in it. I want to join too. That definitely makes an impact too.
Mm-hmm.
In our class, we're learning about like the laws and what we're supposed to provide these students, and supporting them is really the best we can. But on the negative side, our second article talks about how a lot of these students find themselves in districts that don't have very many resources. So that will be an extra challenge on us.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely going out and finding those ourselves and like making sure that they're like viable options.
Either in like surrounding communities that are easily accessible that might have those. Do you think?
Yeah.
Definitely. So I thought that was a really good question to ask. So
Yeah,
that
I
was,
thought so too.
and that was my first Jigsaw post. So we'll probably go and talk about those first.
Okay.
So who's B?
Oh, I'm B. Okay, so my reading was about the Plyler versus Doe Supreme Court case. And this, I think, was just like, I thought it was really important. Like, I'm gonna have a hard time just like summing it all up. But overall, it was a court case where one school was trying to ask for documentation for their students trying to enroll into their school. And if they didn't have documentation, they wanted to fine them to be able to go to the school because they said that they weren't paying taxes and they weren't contributing to the school, so they wanted them to pay that fine to be able to go to the school. But these families didn't have that money, and so like this was brought to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that this was against the 14th Amendment, I believe it was, and that so they made it illegal for schools to even ask for documentation for a student. Overall, it was that they couldn't ask for legal status or social security numbers or push in any way for any information that might expose a student's legal status. They can ask for social security numbers on the free and reduced lunch stuff.
Oh, that program.
But the family doesn't, they're not required to provide that number.
Oh, okay, so they can ask, but it's not actually needed.
Optional.
It's like an optional thing. And the schools aren't allowed to talk to INS at all unless there's a subpoena.
Okay. No, I thought you explained that actually really well. When I was reading your post, I was like, I totally get this. Like,
Okay,
so,
yeah.
No, you
I
did a good job.
Okay, good. So, yeah, that was I just think it was really, like, monumental.
Definitely.
It, at the end here, I, like, summed it up a lot, and at the end I was like, oh, I need to answer, like, these other questions. So at the end I just said that overall the Plyler versus Doe made immigrant students' educational experiences better by allowing them equal access, and this ruling covers all immigrant students in primary and secondary schools. So, and it's all public education. So this doesn't count for private education or post-secondary.
Got it. No, I thought you explained that really well.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
No, I just wanted you to like go over it, and then you totally did.
Awesome.
This.
Yeah, it's just something really good to know about, I think. And C?
Okay. Yeah, that is. So I feel like I always get the easy ones. Which I'm not complaining, but I just feel like I don't write as much. But anyways, mine's about academic engagement, which is very important. Like, I think that was a good topic to bring up. Like how much like it affects their learning in school, and the difference between a disengaged student and an engaged student. How the effects it'll have in school, and for a disengaged student, they'll go down like a road of failures. Is basically what the text said, which is sad to think about, but it's totally true. Like if you're not paying attention, you're not attending class, you're not turning in your homework, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You're not learning anything.
Do you think that covers all students, but it's like a definite bigger thing for ELL students or immigrant students or whatever your article is about? Or
It didn't really mention much of that, but I definitely think it would have an impact. Because I mean, the reason why they probably are disengaged might be because they're ELL.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So it's like they're discouraged and they don't feel like they want to try.
Yeah.
So that probably
Plays a big role.
Yeah, definitely. There's 3 dimensions of academic engagement. There's cognitive, behavioral, and relational. Cognitive engagement means to have curiosity about new learning concepts and wanting to master new skills. And behaviorally engaged means to show up in class on time, turn in assignments, and participate in class and discussions and whatnot. Which, I mean, all of these things are hard for ELL because, of course, you know, if they have that language barrier, they don't want to speak up. They don't want to do that. So it's like up to us teachers to help them do that.
Yeah.
You know, like putting them in small groups and help them speak up and help them become comfortable and help them achieve these tasks so that they are engaged. So
I thought you summarized that really well when I read your thing. I know I didn't read the article, but I felt like I really understood it.
yeah.
And one thing I connected it to was our last discussion.
Yeah.
We were talking about the children we had read about in our book.
Yeah.
And it was one of you two that read about the child that
The
went
Tal.
into
The gang.
Yeah,
That's
Tal.
So like that just
Yeah.
reminds me of like a student who's on that road of kind of failure, disengagement.
That's what I
That's
was
kind of where they
Yeah.
end up.
And I hate using the word failure.
Yeah.
It's such a strong word.
Exactly.
And I don't like saying it. So
Yeah.
but
No, that's what I related it to. I related it to Tao, and I was like, that's exactly what happened with
yeah,
Yeah.
it did.
him.
Gotta get those kids engaged.
Yeah.
Even at a young age, the better.
Yeah.
The younger the age, the better.
Yeah, and it also mentions having like good relationships with like the peers and teachers and adults as well, because that's a big part of
Definitely.
it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to have advocates.
So much like mine, kind of.
Really?
Yeah, it really relates to mine, but I'll say it. Go to mine, okay.
I can do D. So I thought that's funny you just said that about her person that she did last week because mine reminded me of my girl Sharma, who was like, no, okay, I was kidding. So, the hyphenated self, which it refers to one who's ethnically diverse, so like an immigrant or an ELL or somebody who obviously has those cultural diverse values and whether it's language or tradition or practices or whatever, and then they also try and socialize into America and become like more Americanized, is what a lot of people say. So the hyphenated self is you're one way and then you're also another way. So they're not one or the other kind of. So let's see, and mine also talked about academic engagement a little bit, and it says that the factors that contribute to an adolescent's sense of self-efficacy, and that each of those factors have a direct impact on your academic outcomes.
Yeah.
And then the post also asked me to think about ways that I could kind of like deal
Address
with this.
that.
Address the hyphenated self and things like that. And I think it's important. I mean, I feel like I like reiterate the same things all the time, but it's important to kind of like embrace your cultural differences, and I think if teachers kind of address those in the beginning and be like, this is how I'm different, this is what I'm bringing to the classroom, what about you, then I think kids would be feel less
Afraid to share their
right,
differences.
and they wouldn't feel so kind of pressured to socialize into the American system where and then they would kind of realize like, oh yes, they're all American, but they're also different from each other, and so then they would everyone would understand that.
And I want to be friends with everyone, and that's okay.
Right,
And that's
exactly.
a great classroom environment.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay that you're kind of reiterating the same thing over and over, not over and over, but reiterating the same thing from like week to week, because I think that's definitely the point that
Yeah,
this class
it's a
is
core
driving.
value.
It's
Yeah.
a core value that
Yes.
this class is driving.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Driving home.
And we're already
Yeah.
there, so
Yeah.
go us. Look at us.
And then it just kind of ended with talking about how your social experiences, whether it be at home or at school, kind of shape who you are. And I agree with that. I kind of talked about like my own experiences and
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how you tied that into your post. Because I thought that'd be a good question to pose to the group too.
Yeah.
Like what kind of circumstances or something that you had to overcome in your life that helped shape you.
Yeah.
Because that definitely, even not being an ELL myself,
Right.
definitely,
Me too.
yeah,
Probably all
and
of us.
probably all of us, like definitely shapes who we are, and I thought that'd be an interesting conversation.
Well, are all of you guys taking Psych 301 right now?
Not right now.
No?
I am.
You are and you are. Are you
Have you
I
taken?
took it.
Okay, well in Psych 301 we've talked about, well this recent class we were talking about like how your family really affects how you grow up and how you're raised. And it was just a super interesting conversation, and when I read this I was just like, that's exactly what we were
We
learning
connected
in
it.
class.
Yeah, exactly.
And how do you say his name? It's
Bronfenbrenner.
Bronfenbrenner. That was a theorist that we were talking about in class that day. So that reminded me of
Yeah, that reminded me.
I recognize that.
I know, it reminded me of that too because Molly was pointing that out today in
Yeah.
tech class, and I was like, that reminds me of this class.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
pointed out that.
And I don't know if you know what that guy is or said, but you're kind of like at the center, and then you're like, you have a, I don't
Wrote
know
down
what
the
they're all called.
systems.
Oh, okay. Your macro system, or microsystem is you, right?
yeah, so it's
And then macro is like your immediate family. Then exo is kind of like the relationships between your family and other people. And then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And
Yeah.
basically
So just
the whole
how,
world's at the end.
So just how your core affects so much how who you are.
Right.
How
Like, yeah,
people
like the middle ones affect you more than the outer ones, but they all affect you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting.
Got
All
it.
into the middle. They all affect you somehow, but just like
Yeah.
the different levels.
Well, and that's also like that. I can't remember what it's called, but that model that I was talking about last week.
Yeah.
How everything just affects everything. Like it's a huge circle. It's just everything's gonna affect everything.
Yeah.
That's
Constant math. Okay, so we are on my post.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the reason why mine connects to yours is because one of the reason why they have such a hard time engaging academically is because they feel so negatively portrayed by all of Americans. And there were some like really shocking things in the section about how they feel like Americans view them as garbage, or the people who pick up their garbage, or things like that, you know? And they just, and that's why.
Yeah.
They don't engage academically, or they go down these negative trajectories
Yeah.
because of these like self-fulfilling prophecies that are laid on them.
Yeah.
So, so they can either kind of rise above it and be like, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And if they maintain hope by support from
Mhm.
teachers, then they can, you know, and they can succeed.
Yeah.
But my section was really negative and talked about how oftentimes they just kind of engage in these self-defeating behaviors because of the low expectations laid on them by society through the media and their peers and their teachers and their macro systems and
Yeah.
whatever, you know.
Totally.
So that was what mine was all about. And if we help them, if we give them more positive outlooks and we see them in a positive way and show them that we see them in a positive way, then we can help them create trans cultural identities.
Okay, yeah.
And through that, they kind of come TCKs. That's how mine kind of relates to TCKs, is because they have like this other culture identity. They're not just one culture, they're like many cultures.
Yeah.
And so if we help them have that, then they will succeed.
I think that ties back to what we were talking about, how as teachers you should give the resources to them, and I think that would be like a really big that would prove that you really are
Yeah.
caring about them and their academics if you're providing as many resources as you can for their situation.
Or as above and beyond as you can to help them.
Well, first, I really liked the part in your post that, or I thought it was really interesting that you said like the children that are born in the U.S. who are still from immigrant families, their futures will like go up, but children
that
that
was
come,
in
wait, is that the
other
that's the
post.
second one. Okay, never mind.
Oh. Got so excited.
I'm really excited.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
So, my second post from the Growing Up in the Shadows, the developmental implications of unauthorized status. My post, we each had to go over what unauthorized is, mixed status, and then interrupted rites of passage. So I'm just going to be really quickly because mine's really easy. So unauthorized, just they live in the country but without official legal authorization. And then mixed status families, you have one family member who's unauthorized, and that could be like a brother or sister, a mom or dad, but you could be authorized. And then interrupted rites of passage are like varying forms. So like you might be born in the U.S. but your parents aren't, more like that. So mine is really quick to sum up.
Yeah, I like that one.
Okay, that's going like directly into mine.
Which
That's-
goes into mine. Because
Okay.
mine connects off of yours, which
B,
is really hard to
C.
do because
Yeah.
I was like, well, I don't know how to do this, and I was waiting for you to write yours so
Yeah.
I could help go off that, but you didn't do it
Oh.
until today. So I was like, I'm just gonna write something quick, and then during discussion we'll connect it.
We'll connect them out. But,
Okay.
and then you and
Mine
I,
too.
yeah, you and I
We
read
did
the
the same
What's the
thing.
article name again? Growing up. Oh, it was the same one. Growing up in the
I bet it does
shadows.
too.
And I had the two parts that were health and then cognitive development.
Yeah, which I also went off of, so all three of
Yes.
us are getting very similar.
Okay, so it asked me to talk about the macro and micro scales of this.
Mhm.
So I kind of posted a lengthy one, and then I saw yours, and I was like, oh, I could probably shorten it up. So I did a little edit note, and I just kind of said that the macro systems were the government systems, the historical and cultural views of this people,
Mhm.
and the things that are further away from the student. And these things in the health issues were the students primarily. Undocumented families only get two kinds of health benefits. You can either you get prenatal care because you need babies to be healthy, and emergency room visits. And
And
that's
there's no in between.
there's no in between. And it was like, so if a child is documented but their family isn't, the child does get the health services, but the family won't, kind of thing. But if that child is undocumented, they only get the prenatal and the
Emergency care.
emergency care. And so
So as a child, pretty much just emergency care because you're not going to be pregnant.
yeah, and
Well,
so
right.
yeah, as a child, it's just emergency care.
Exactly.
But so on the macro scale, that was the government programs that were offered to them is like slim to none.
Yeah.
And the micro was that for that particular student, they're probably gonna. I was guessing that they're gonna be sick more often. They might miss a lot of
Yeah.
school. They're not gonna
Definitely.
get that health care that they need. And if the families don't have the resources to know where to go for maybe other things, that's gonna put a big strain on their family.
Definitely.
And
It could ultimately lead to them dropping out.
Oh,
very
yeah.
early.
Sure.
Exactly.
yeah, it could. And then cognitive development was okay. What did I say? Health issues.
22 minutes, guys.
Okay.
It's
okay,
The
yeah,
third
this
part
part
is
is pretty
Wait,
the
we're
number
at
3 is like
22
every day,
minutes?
so we can
Oh.
just discuss it. So
Yeah.
And the cognitive development, I said that they could be harmed by financial issues in their family, especially if they're paying like emergency room bills and their parents, like, if undocumented parents have a hard time finding jobs because they don't. Yeah, they just have a hard
It's
time
not
finding
study
jobs.
work. It's like
Yeah.
you work here and you work here.
And so they have the stress of financial issues normally, but then connecting it to the health, if they're paying like medical bills, that's even more stress on top of them.
Yeah.
And the part that I read really went on into college, and that these kids, even if they make it out of high school, it's really hard for them to go to college because college, they have to pay for it. That's a financial issue. They don't get government programs to help them, like the FAFSA. And a lot of times they don't know where to go for resources for such things as scholarships. So a lot of times they either end up going to community colleges, don't go to college at all, or they're working full time as they're going to school.
Oftentimes you can't because you don't even have your social security number. So if
Yeah.
you don't have your SSN number, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Which is so
I
sad.
don't remember if it was this article, but it was talking about how some kids who have immigrant families don't even know that they don't have the social security number or
Yeah.
that they're
Until they
not
apply.
documented until they apply for college. And I thought, oh my goodness, to find that out and then have this fear of getting deported.
Yeah, I'd be like, I don't
Oh
know.
my goodness.
That'd be
Citizen.
horrible.
Yeah.
But mine really connected to yours because it was talking a lot about the differences between like children that might be in undocumented families, but they might be documented and like the whole mixed.
And how that affects how they make their way in the world.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Sorry.
No, that was my bad.
Okay, that was pretty much it. Yeah, those were the big points.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, should we do mine?
You just go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go.
Because mine connects to hers. So my three were social, emotional development, civic engagement, and labor market access. And I'm actually going to start with labor market access because you were talking about how they don't have city jobs, and that's pretty much what happens is they don't really have access to good paying jobs, obviously, and they're usually really, really low skilled, and there's like no security. And there's nothing like that. Yeah, exactly. But the cool thing is, well, I guess it's not really cool, but good thing is that with each generation that is born, the scale goes up, and they get more access to secure jobs and to better paying jobs and more potential to get those higher paying jobs and more security. So I thought that was good. And then sorry, lost my place. Civic engagement. Okay, so that really relates to the exosystem, which is like the second level up from microsystem, which is like the institutes and stuff. I found it really interesting that children from immigrant families, so they're probably born in the U.S., are usually really, really, really involved in civic engagement more than their American counterparts because they want a better life.
They want change.
And they want change, yeah. And so they're into not really politics, but like advocating and translating and all sorts of things that will help their community of immigrant families that they know personally. So, and then the last one, social, emotional, I don't even know if I'm going to say that right, socio, I know, okay, socio-emotional development, that really affects their microsystem because they're in unstable homes, kind of, because they have this fear of deportation all the time if they're in undocumented family homes, and so that has a huge effect on them, and it also affects their academic involvement because of this fear, which is why this also related to yours and the other one too, which I thought was really interesting. It just puts a huge stress on them and lots of fears, and usually they have an unstable parent family environment because their families are under this stress of no money and fear of deportation and being discovered. And so, they don't really know what resources are available to them because they're too afraid to go find those.
Definitely.
Okay, so mine was supposed to kind of relate back to B, which I kind of did, but it was more cognitive rather than health. But I mean, you could relate it back to health. I guess I just didn't do it personally. But it was mainly talking about one's individual experience with like their societal concern.
Oh, societal?
Thank you.
There you go.
I've never seen that word before, so that's okay.
I got you.
Societal
We all have problems.
with parental unauthorized status during early skill development, so it's harder for their skills to develop when they're younger. And when they have unauthorized parents, it's going to shape their developmental context at home and during childcare, at school, mainly anywhere they go. They have a drawback as far as being ready for school cognitively and socially. And that's mainly for like early childhood when they're first starting. But for middle childhood development, they didn't really have any studies on it. I think just because when you're younger, it's more crucial, I guess, because that's when you're first starting everything. Whereas when you're middle, you're just kind of like the excess of what you were, if that makes any sense. But they said that similar situations are still going to occur, like low academic ability. That's still going to affect it. And they're going to have a hard time emerging into adulthood. And they said, which is interesting when they said this, but it's true, that the jobs that they're going to get when they're older will be similar to their parents. So.
Kind of going what your last thing says, that their jobs are going to be similar to their parents. That really relates back to yours.
Well, are they born in the U.S. and they have documentation, or do they not? Because if they do not, then my section said that they were not gonna go above their parents.
Yeah.
But if they have documentation and they're born in the U.S. and they're a legal U.S. citizen, then they will usually rise above, unless other pressures bring them down, like what I was
those
talking about
stereotypes
earlier.
you're talking
Yeah.
about, or like those negative
Like those
outlooks.
negative images from social media. Yeah.
And I definitely thought that connected back to mine, talking about like the different benefits that they have, because even kids from undocumented families who are documented have so many more benefits.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Okay, that was it.
So mine was just kind of like, I feel like mine just kind of like wrapped it all up. It asked how you would explain what the implications of unauthorized status would be, like to anybody who was asking. So I said that would include a risk of lower educational performance, economic trials, low mobility, and then the hyphenated sense of self. So I kind of talked about everything that was laid out in there. Because their original culture as well as the mix with the American culture kind of a little bit clashing. And I said that this was a sad reality, considering the goal for people who are unauthorized status was to come here for a better life, and I feel like they're kind of just getting shut down just because of where they came from, pretty much, and the fact that they're not American citizens. And then I was to talk about the discussion section at the end. I gave some like statistical evidence and like something for you to kind of think about to put into perspective. On average, there's 1 to 2 students directly affected by unauthorized status in any given American classroom. So that would be obviously you're unauthorized yourself, or if like your parents are, but you were born in the U.S. Which we see the differences.
1 out of 2?
1 or 2 in each.
Oh.
So there's at least
Okay, no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2. We're gonna have more than 2 kids in our classroom.
Yeah, we are.
And then it also noted that the concept of unauthorized status isn't a Latino issue, which is oftentimes what it's kind of referred to, because there's plenty of unauthorized people from other areas. They were talking about people from Asia who come there unauthorized. And this kind of refers to what you're talking about, how unauthorized status harms children's development, and then their access is limited to important developmental opportunities like childcare, preschool, and then higher education, obviously, later on.
I have a question of what you meant by undocumented people have low mobility. Does that just mean they can't go out of the country?
I'm pretty.
If you don't know, that's
Yeah, no, you're good. Kind of just like they're most likely they're either in like a farming community or like the slum sort of deal, and without like economic stability, you're not going to really be able to move around. So, though they're in America and that's what the goal was, they're not really in a part of America that they feel that they can succeed in, at least.
Okay.
Also, I feel like they're themselves, they can cause themselves to be less mobile, because talking about my socio-emotional development, about how they don't really reach out to the community because of their fear of them being undocumented and the police and forces and stuff. So they can cause it themselves.
They want to
a little
hunker
bit.
down too a little
Yeah.
bit. Okay.
They want to find like a solid place to live and then just go out from there on.
Yeah.
Probably want to keep a low profile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That makes
that for
sense.
sure. I was talking about more financial, but that for sure too.
I think those are both, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but both these points, I
applicable.
guess. Applicable.
Factors.
Factors, there
That's
you
a
go.
good word.
That's the word I wanted.
Okay, so for number 3, should we just kind of like all talk about it since we all answered it?
Yeah.
And
Since
we're
we're
like
kind of running out of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we kind of talked about, since we all watched
You have to
it.
go to work.
Oh, no, not on Tuesdays. I have work on Thursdays.
It's just that it's 35 minutes, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
and,
just
like,
long. It's just
very
long.
long.
Very long.
Yeah.
I think that we all watched it, so maybe if you want to bring up a point about how awesome you thought it was, like, that's really cool. I think we should mostly talk about what you would say to the Arizona
That's a good
legislator.
Yeah.
I think that's like a good opinion-based thing, and I had a really hard time trying to think of what I wanted to say.
I was talking about the fact that I just didn't really understand what he was saying by the program being anti-white, considering it was a choice that the students were making, and they were also
that was my main case.
And there were also choices to take European history and European literature, as well as there were choices to take African American. So it was kind of like a broad range, I thought. And also, if those classes were being allowed, they were still meeting the state standards for graduation requirements and everything. And so I think that just because you were given the choice to not take European history, which I think is awesome, that you could take Mexican American and African American history and literature. First of all, doesn't mean that it's anti-white, and second of all, like, they're still being prepared for college, and they're still like meeting the graduation requirements.
Yeah.
So
they're being
That's what I was
prepared for
thinking.
college
Yeah.
in what they're interested in and what they want to learn that relates to who they are. So I don't understand why that should be banned anyway, especially because it was like doing so well and
Success,
graduation rates were increasing and kids like their teachers, they were coming to school, kids aren't missing school. I just don't, I thought it was a very
seems
stupid
so
decision.
silly.
Yeah. I think it kind of refers to what you were talking about. You mentioned in class and last week about how everyone has the right to see themselves in the classroom, which I think is definitely a big thing, and also about like differentiated instruction, which is something that we like always talk about in classes. Forever. No, but just the idea that you need to cater to their needs, and if that's something that they need to in order to succeed, then that should be something that they're offered.
Definitely.
One of the things that I just thought that I saw the guy standing at the podium talking to a crowd. Do you
I
remember
think that was the superintendent.
the
one who
the
shut it down.
superintendent that shut it down? He was saying to the crowd, like, our school needs to be a place where students don't form like these gang cliques where you have like we're the Asians, we're the African Americans, we're the Mexicans, we're the whites. Do you guys remember him saying that? And I was like, these classes are open to like any student to take it.
Did he not see because in the video there were white people in there.
I know,
Yeah,
that's
people.
That
was everyone in
That's
there.
exactly what I thought during the video. It's like
Yeah.
everyone's in this class, like just because primarily it is Latino students doesn't mean that Latino students are the only ones taking this class.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they're not the only ones allowed
Yeah.
to take the class.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it.
If it was like the Latino students were the only ones allowed to take this class, that would be a completely different story.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Definitely.
But
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go.
no, but it's no. I'm glad you are.
Girl,
Because
yeah.
you're like
On the
fired
same
up
page.
about it. It's just like
pissed.
yeah, everyone's
Really
allowed to take them, so it's like the whole cliquey thing, the whole like
Yeah.
gang, not really gang.
I
I'm using gang in the wrong context.
You
but
know,
I think he
groups.
used that
Group.
word.
Groups.
There, groups. It's just the wrong idea, and it's not what they're promoting now. And I don't think that's what was happening.
No,
And I think if
so
he thinks that, then that means he didn't go into the classroom himself and experience it for himself.
Right.
If
Yeah.
he's saying
That's like what we were, or wait, oh no. Okay. None of you. In my 310 class that I'm in by myself, we were talking about like school funding and how the people who make those decisions aren't the ones that are A, being affected, and B, they have no clue because they're not even in the building. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
he doesn't even work in that school building, so he all he has is a secondhand view of people who don't agree with it, and he doesn't have a view for himself.
in Precious Knowledge in the movie, because I've seen the movie before, it shows like the superintendent going and sitting on the class, and it's just him being completely defensive during the whole
Right.
class. Like he already has so many negative stereotypes about the class and so many negative views that he's not open to understanding
Not
how
going
important
on,
this
yeah.
class is for these students that when he's in the class he just becomes so defensive, and the students are just trying to be like accepting of him in the class and just like trying to like let him know how much they appreciate it, and he just shuts them down. So like even when he sits down in the class one time, because he only sat in the class one time throughout the whole time these classes were involved for like 4 or 5 years, he sat in one time and he didn't even actually like take it to heart. He just became like so rude about
He
it.
already
Almost
had
like
what
he-
he thought about
Yeah,
it. He already
And
had
he
his
felt like
ideas.
he had to be there just to be able to say that.
Oh, I've
he
been
would-
there.
I
Yeah.
experienced it,
that's
so
what
I
I
didn't
meant.
shut it down.
And that's what he said in like in the interview when he was in the like with the school superintendent and all the other groups. He's like, I was in that class one time and I didn't like it, and I was like, one time and
You
you
didn't
really
like it.
you
You
didn't
don't
take it to
like
heart.
it.
You
don't
did
even
not
need
take
the
it to
class.
heart.
You need to retire. Or you're fired.
Amen.
Yep.
So, you know, like in one ear and out the other, because you are so set
Totally.
on your mindset. You do not let anything else in, which I guess
Well,
is what's
and-
happening when
That's like
Yeah.
going on like our 310 class. You have a prejudice of what you want to see.
Exactly.
I mean, you have that mindset of the prejudice that you want to see, and that's what you're gonna see.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But
Sorry.
But I don't know, maybe real maybe real quick, maybe try and close it up. But what was I gonna ask? Just why do you think that this is happening? Like, why do you think that? Do you think it's like fear that people have that makes them want to shut this down, or why do you think they want to shut it down?
That's such a good question.
Yeah.
Like, kudos to you.
I just thought like it's a border.
I think it could be
area.
because
That's a lot of
I bet a lot of those kids are immigrants for sure. Either
definitely.
with the whole unauthorized status thing,
They're somehow being affected by
right
it,
by that.
whether it be family or friends.
And I think it could be the families who are not unauthorized status, kind of afraid of their success almost, which is horrible. But yeah, just the fact that they're the illegal immigrants or not the non-illegal immigrants, and we're the people who deserve to be here. We're the white
We're
people
paying
who've been
taxes.
here. Yes,
we're-
yes.
I think
And
it's
it
that
needs to
fear.
be. Yeah, I
A lot
think
of
it is
fear.
too. A fear of them succeeding. Honestly.
And I think it's also maybe I'm not gonna say this right, but an education for multicultural
Uneducated?
studies.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
actually, I was just about to say that because I was trying to explain it earlier where I was talking about that term for people who are like, there is no diversity, we are all the same, there's no Asians, blacks, or
I know what you're trying to
Mexicans.
think of too.
I
It's
know,
bothering
right?
me.
And by saying there's no diversity, you are not allowing for diversity, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You're really closing that gate, and I feel like that's kind of where that superintendent's coming from when he's like,
He doesn't want it for
he's
diversity.
trying.
He wants everyone to be on the same playing field, but that's just not the case in the world.
Yes.
Exactly. And he's not embracing or acknowledging that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then Arizona just has other issues because they're the ones that are like stopping people are you an illegal citizen? And they like stop people. And that was a law they had. Like it was like
I think it's definitely that
National things.
fear.
It's a lot of fear. Definitely a lot of people that are uneducated.
And with that singing,
Yeah, I know. I thought singing. I think we're gonna close it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lost myself as I was looking